Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Trio Maryland's November meeting. I'm Marty Marin, and this is my wife, Michelle, and we manage Trio Maryland. And we'd like to welcome all you guys here today, our members and our guests, especially our new guests that have been here for the first time. We're glad to have you on board. We have a great topic today, and we have two super presenters who are from the Living Legacy Foundation that will be covering this topic. And both of them have a lot of experience. So if you have questions, so this will be your chance to ask. And our next meeting will be on December the 11th. And our topic is going to be on Medicare Part D. We do the program every year in December. It's quite successful, and she is quite knowledgeable. So if you have questions or concerns, that may be another great meeting to come to. Right now, I'm going to introduce my wife, Michelle, and she's going to take over and introduce our speakers.
Good morning. We're very lucky today. Our guest speakers are Amber Hellman, Aftercare Coordinator at the Living Legacy Foundation, and Carolyn Hagan, Aftercare Associate at the Living Legacy Foundation, here to talk to us about writing your donor family, something we all need to do if you haven't done it yet. So thank you, Amber and Carolyn, for presenting to our group. Welcome, and now we'll turn the program over to the both of you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is one of our favorite topics. I think I can speak on Caroline's behalf in that as well. So we just are really appreciative for the time to come and just talk and chat and provide you the information that we have. Presentation's not terribly too long. We try to keep it short because we know sometimes there's just a lot more questions that need to come through. And so we're just going to go through it. We're pretty lax in the way that we present things. So please just feel free to type the questions in the chat and we'll have them open. Thank you to Michelle and Marty for inviting us. My name's Amber. Like she said, I'm the Aftercare Coordinator here. I've been with Living Legacy for 5 years. I started out actually in Caroline's role and then worked with our families. I actually worked with the donor families in the hospitals for about 1.5 years. And then I'm now in charge of our aftercare program, which provides support, grief resources, not only to our donor families, but to recipients that need it as well. And so I always try to make sure I say that because I think sometimes that's not super well known. Know that we're here for you as well. And I'll let Caroline introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us this morning. I am Caroline. I am our Aftercare Associate, and I think Amber and I are just really excited to present on this topic this morning. Like she said, this is definitely one that is one of our favorites to present, and we're just really happy to have you all join us. So just some objectives of kind of what we're going to cover today. First off, a thank you to you guys for joining us. And then we're going to kind of navigate the process together from start to finish, kind of how do I begin, and then will I hear back? We'll talk about the emotional understanding of both of you guys as the recipients and then on the behalf of the donor family. We'll talk about how do I start, what do I say, and then, always our biggest question is, will I hear back? We're going to provide you some great examples, all very different, but all unique and lovely in their own way. Just to kind of give you guys some ideas of what some samples may look like. And then at the end, we'll take any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. And at the very end, we will include our email as well. So if you're not comfortable addressing your questions in the chat, that is very fine. You are more than welcome to email myself and Amber, and we should get back to you within the next few days.
So first, we just wanted to start with a thank you, thank you, thank you. Whether you're on the recipient or the donor family side, we're always encouraging people to write. And so, we often get from recipients, they don't want hurt the donor family any further or creating further grief or anything of that nature. And so there's a hesitancy to reach out to a donor family. And then there's also hesitancy on the donor family side because they don't want to feel like they're intruding and or just add any pressure to you. So first, we just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. It's the first step in opening communication. We never can guarantee exactly what that communication will look like, but we've had plenty of families that have started with one simple letter or one simple thank you, and it has turned into a relationship and meeting and just some really beautiful things that have come out of writing. So we just wanted to start there, and just such a huge thank you for all of you even being here and thinking about taking that first step.
So just kind of talking about the process from start to finish, I think the process for any donor family or recipient kind of begins with deciding to write. We know it's a very emotional process and it can be a hard decision to come to. Are you ready? Do you feel like this is the right time for you to do so? So that first step is going to be writing the letter, whether that be a typed letter, a handwritten letter, a holiday card, it's whatever works best for you. And then we are here to kind of help you navigate that correspondence process. So that letter will come directly to us. And then from there, we will assess where it's going to go. Is your donor family local? If so, we will make contact with them. Or, with the new organ allocation process, we know that a lot of donor families from our local recipients may reside out of state. The great thing about that is we have great connections with all the organ procurement organizations throughout the US and beyond. And so we can make that connection with them and they can reach out to the donor family on our behalf. They have a great working relationship, just like we do with our donor families that they do with theirs. So they can reach out for us. And then after that, once we know kind of where it's going, we'll send you either an email or a postcard letting you know that we've received it. We acknowledge right now that the postal service is kind of wonky. So if you don't hear from us for whatever reason, always feel free to reach out. We want you to know that we've got it, that the process is moving along. And then the next step, the donor family receives the letter. So whether that be directly from us or from the other OPO, the donor family does have multiple options. Are they ready to receive the letter? We always keep letters on file. So that way, if a donor family says at any particular time when we present a letter that they are not ready, this just isn't a good week, maybe let's try next week. Or they don't know when they're going to be ready, and that's okay too. We always keep that letter on file so that when they decide that the time is right for them, we have it to provide.
And to that point, Caroline, thank you for, that piece where we always call and check in the emotional piece and make sure that they're ready. We do the same thing for recipients. So if you were ever to, have not written in, your donor family does the touch base first, we're going to have that same conversation with you. Sometimes we have recipients that think they're ready, they write, they hear back. And then once they know they have a letter back, then the emotion hits them and it's, I don't know, can you give me a few days? So just know, give that opportunity, that space for everyone involved, donor families and recipients alike. So here are some of the specifics. When you send a letter to us, and when we say letter, this is all encompassing on our end, right? So if it's a handwritten letter, a note, a typed letter, an email, anything, we just kind of categorize it as a letter, correspondence. When you send it to us, there's a few pieces of information that we need from you. We ask that you put it on a separate sheet of paper or material, however you're sending it. And that's to identify you, to make sure that we're pairing up the correct donor family with the correct recipient. So we're going to ask for your name, your date of transplant, where your transplant took place, and which organ or organs that you received. Now, a big question that we always get asked is, should you provide contact information in the letter or card to the donor family? That is up to you. We at Living Legacy very much respect that you're adults and the donor family, they're adults. So if you're making the conscious decision to include that information, we will not redact it. We will let it in. We probably will have a conversation with you to make sure that you did want it included, but we will not redact it. We just say, be mindful of what you're sharing, right? While you are connected to these wonderful families in a very special way that no one else or very few other people have, they still are strangers. So just know that you have that ability to include that contact information, but don't feel like you need to. We are more than happy to facilitate all of that corresponding back and forth between you and the donor family. And we've had some families where they've written probably 5 or 6 letters each, and they still come through our office. So, we just wanted to make it a point to say that. Like Caroline said, what if you're not local, or what if the donor family isn't local? We're going to be able to find out all of that information with what you provide us with your identifying information. That family lives out of state. I know that I can call Maureen in DC and she's going to know how to get in touch with that donor family, and vice versa. So don't ever, especially with email and everything, state lines, distance, they don't matter as much anymore as they used to.
And a great tidbit that we always tell families is if you're really set on including some personal contact information so that they can reach out to you, you can always create a separate email address just for this specific purpose. So that when the time is right for you and you feel like, okay, today's a good day, I'm going to check my, my correspondence inbox, you can do that. But when you're walking through Target, getting groceries, you don't see an email pop up that kind of like gives you those emotions. It kind of gives you the control to check in when the time is right for you. And so, speaking of that, we know that there is an emotional toll that comes with this correspondence process, not only on behalf of the recipients, but as the donor family as well. For you as recipients, it takes a lot to decide that this is the right time to write and to kind of pour your heart out into this letter. And we'd be remiss not to acknowledge that. We acknowledge that it is hard and it is a complex process. There's no Hallmark card for thank you for the gift of life. So, we know this is a difficult process. And on the other end, we also know that this can be a difficult process for the donor family as well, which is why we always make sure to reach out to all parties, whether it be donor family or recipients, just to touch base. It gives us the opportunity to talk through any thoughts and feelings that they may have in regard to this correspondence. So while we know it's difficult, just know that we are here to help you navigate the process.
And I know, look, me and Caroline are touchy-feely people, right? My training is in counseling, and so we're all about feelings over here. But I think it's just really important to recognize that, especially with all of the conversations that we have with recipients, that these grief reactions, that's what donor families are going through, but you're going through your own set, whether that's now getting healthy or just understanding the gravity of the situation that someone, while you are probably having one of the greatest days of your life in the sense that, you have the second chance at life, that it came with a price, it came with a cost. And so know that we're here for that support. Like I said in the beginning, we have those additional resources that we can sit with you and work with you. I also know a lot of the transplant centers have support groups and things of that nature. TRIO is a wonderful place to come and be with other people who share a very specific, unique experience with you. So just know that it's okay to have those emotions as they come up. We did have a question in the chat. I know Caroline answered it, but I think it's important to talk about it here as we go into this next slide about language barriers. So we have families mostly Spanish speaking, but we have a translation service that we use. And so, if you write in and it's in Spanish and we know that the donor family is mainly English speaking, we will translate that letter for you or card for you, but we will still send both. So they have the original and the translation. And we have a service that we use in our medical field. And so this is all they do is work with families and things of that nature. So that would not be an issue.
So one of the biggest questions we get is where and how do I start? Kind of the first step, like we said, is deciding to write and kind of doing what feels right. You're going to see some great examples coming up of different letters, and some are typed, some are handwritten, some are, greeting cards. It is whatever feels comfortable to you. There's no pressure in including like a long letter. It can just kind of be short, sweet, and thank you. Thank you for what you've done for me. Thank you for what you've done for my family. And then what can I include? Donor families want to hear about you. They want to know who you are. What's your favorite kind of ice cream? Are you a big Ravens fan? Just those little tidbits that can kind of help build a connection between the two of you. And then one thing we always recommend that you include is, would you like ongoing contact? That will kind of give the donor family or the recipient, whichever party you're writing to, that okay, yes, they are comfortable hearing back from me. And while we know that may change, at that time, it kind of gives them the ability and a little bit of comfort knowing that they're not and feeling that they're imposing on you or anything like that. You've given the okay that they'd love to hear from you. And then what should you not include? So like we talked about, including that identifying information. So, full name, full addresses, like Amber stated, the person that you're writing to, while you have this incredible connection that it's very individualized, you're also strangers. You don't know much about these people. So, steer away from including like full names and addresses, any specific identifying information. But like we said, if that is your wish to include that, we will honor that. We will have a conversation with you about what that may entail in regards to like being able to be found on social media, them being able to kind of Google you and find your personal email address, things of that nature. While we will not redact information, that is not the same practice for all OPOs across the US and beyond. And we will try to also have a conversation with you about that. If we know that it's an OPO that does redact information, we will let you know as soon as we know that. That way you're prepared, you know what going into it. Unfortunately, all the times we don't know if that information will be redacted, but we will try to keep you as in the loop as we possibly can in regards to when the letter's getting there, is any information redacted, and so forth.
And I think one kind of special tidbit, because we've done a couple of donor family recipient meetings this year, and one thing that comes up constantly is the recipients have something new since surgery and they want to share that with the donor family. So I had a meeting not too long ago, and suddenly, after her transplant, she loved Starbucks coffee, a specific type of coffee, and she was not a coffee drinker beforehand. And come to find out, her donor friend was a manager at the Starbucks and he loved coffee, right? And so they just felt like that was a really special connection. So there really isn't anything wrong to put in a letter, right? If it's about you, the donor family wants to know about you. So the famous, infamous, sometimes dreaded question of, will you hear back? And the best answer I can give you is maybe. So we gave you a really cute picture of a cat to make you hopefully soften that blow. Just like it's a process for you and you're going through your own emotions and things of that nature, the donor family is going through the same thing. So just like all of you are individualized, there is no one size fits all for donor families. So sometimes, those donor families are holding on to those letters and they want them and they're going to respond the next day. And we're going to call and say, you emailed me this yesterday. Can I get this to the recipient tomorrow? And we have those families. We have some families that are very appreciative that letters were sent, but are unable to take it at that time. We had one family, I think we held letters probably for a good 6 to 7 months. And then one day they called and they're like, okay, we're ready. Sometimes they like to receive the letters, but it's too much for them to write back. I have a friend that I know here, but personally, she was a liver recipient, and every year she wrote a letter on her anniversary of her transplant and never got anything back. And then one year finally did. And it was very short and simple from donor mom that just said, thank you so much. I love to hear that you're doing well. But in my own grieving process, I just can't write back right now. And I don't know if I'm ever going to be. So just know it's a maybe. If you've written and it's been a couple of months and you just want to check in, call us. Especially if it's our donor family, we have no problem calling to have that conversation of how are you feeling? How are you doing? Things of that nature. And if it's another OPO, we'll call and bug our colleagues. They're used to us calling them and asking them questions and seeing if we can get updates. Ronnie, that's a really great question. So if we cannot get in touch with your donor family, yes, that was something we would call you. We would never want to leave you in the lurch and let you know, we would let you know that for whatever reason, we don't have any contact information and we would not be able to get that letter to them.
And I just got a great question from George in the chat. What if his donor family doesn't have the initial desire to meet, whether that be in person, virtually, even in regards to correspondence? Can you circle back and ask again? That's okay. Like we said with letters, if you don't hear anything and in a couple months later, you want to send another letter just to let them know that you're thinking of them, you are more than welcome to do that. And like we said, we will always have a conversation with that other party to make sure that it's not too much. And we will be open and honest with you in regards to they're not ready at this time, or they're hoping that maybe in the future things will be different and they'll be ready to receive that correspondence. But it's okay to ask again. In the beginning, it's early, the process is new. Maybe a couple years down the line, the family will be ready. And it's okay for us to kind of circle back and touch base with them again. So as you can see here, we have some great examples. Both are very different. So the one on my right-hand side is a beautiful handwritten letter. And then the one on the left is also a beautiful typed letter, each giving a little bit of information about who they are and kind of about their story. While they're both very different, they're both so unique and so personalized and so incredible in their own way.
And just some different examples, right? So like Caroline said, there is no Hallmark card. So sometimes we just get a thank you card and it's a short note, right? Because what else can you say other than thank you? It's really the act and the privilege of saying thank you and recognizing the gift, I think, is what most donor families appreciate. So again, just different examples, you know, in the typed letter, it talks about how that they've tried to write this letter multiple times and it's been difficult for them. And I think sometimes that takes the pressure off of the donor family, just like it would for you all to say, okay, I'm not the only one that's nervous. I'm not the only one that has feelings about this, things of that nature. And I think the card sometimes is a really good idea. We, you know, are approaching the holiday season with Thanksgiving and all the winter holidays coming in December. We get a lot of holiday cards. We actually have one recipient that sends their family Christmas card that they send every year. They always make sure it goes to the donor family because that's how they look at them, right? They look at them as family. So, you know, we're hoping in these examples that you see that there really is no one size fits all.
So as you can see here, so while Amber and I keep saying a letter, it may not always be a letter. It's going to be whatever feels right for you. So you can see there's actually a poem on my left-hand side called A Heartfelt Thanks. And this recipient just couldn't put their words into a letter, couldn't put their thoughts and feelings there. But a poem felt right, and that's okay. And it's so beautiful. And I'm sure that the donor family really cherished this letter. On the bottom left, so we're going to talk a little bit later about our recipient writing packets. That's actually a sample of the card that is included in the recipient writing packets for you to use if you have the desire, or to just kind of give you a sample of something that you could potentially use if you wanted to. And then you can see that he wrote just a short, sweet thank you for the gift of life. Doesn't have to be anything long, doesn't have to be, you know, 3 pages, just something saying thank you.
So once you have it done and it's written or it's typed or it's filled out, what do you do with it? So you can email it to us if it's digital and it's typed. That aftercare email, that is a general email, but it comes to me and Caroline, and our phones are constantly blowing up. So that's the best way to send it if you're going to send it through the mail, or email, excuse me. If you want to send it through the postal service, which is always an option as well, you would just send it to Living Legacy, but attention aftercare, and that's our address on the screen, the 1730 Twin Springs Road, Suite 200. And I'll leave this up here if people are writing it down, or if they want to take a picture of it quickly, I'll leave it up there for just a second or so. But just know, as soon as we get it, the more contact information that you provide us, I think it's important to say, the better way we can get in touch with you, right? So if you send it in an email, same day, you're at least going to get an email saying acknowledge that we've received it. If you send it through the mail, at least include a phone number, so that way we can call you or text you and just let you know that we've gotten it, it's in process, things of that nature. Remember that this is your process, right? We want to empower you all. So as things come up, if you have questions, or, you know, once you get the email or call saying that, you know, the letter's in process and you want to know, okay, well, is my donor family local, or is, you know, are they located out of the state? Of course, we can't provide you specific, you know, identifying information, but we can have that conversation. Hey, you know, we had to send this letter out of state. We know that this OPO is usually really good and really fast, and so I don't think it's going to take a ton of time. Or, hey, this OPO is just so big and vast that sometimes it takes a little longer for things to process. So just know that this is your process. This is your heart. This is your letter, and we want to honor that. And please, there's no such thing as enough questions. Okay. So that writing packet, and I was supposed to have one in like a dum-dum. I left it in the office last week on Friday when I left the thing. But the writing packet, the example is here in this blue card that you can see. It's got a quote by John F. Kennedy that says, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." So you'll get that card. The inside is completely blank, so you can fill it up or just write a short note. And then you'll also have other documents in there, right? It covers some of the information that we talked about here about things to include, what not to include, a good almost like a Mad Libs of here's a letter, and you can kind of plug your information in if you're just really stuck about what to say. And then it also has our contact information if you need anything. And it already actually has a really nice pre-made card that prompts you to provide all of your information, right? So your name, address, phone number, things of that nature. If you would like a writing packet, we have plenty. We would be more than happy to send you one. Just email that aftercare email, just put in the subject line, requesting a writing packet. So when we go back in the office this week, we can just get them right into the mail. And we do ask that you include your name, address, and phone number. That will just quicken the process. Once we do get your letter on the back end, if we already have that information documented, we can just get it and send it away. So that's the end of the formal presentation. I know that there's some questions coming in through the chat. And so Caroline, if you want, we can just tag team in and I can read a couple out to you, if that's fine.
So it looks like our first question is from Raheem. How can he find out about his donor family?
Okay. So in the sense of finding out like where they are and things of that nature, just call us, we'll get your information and get an idea if they were our local donor family, if they were out of state. If you're looking for specific information, we can't give that to you until you all open up that process. You and the donor family both share that interest in wanting to connect. Sometimes on both ends, recipients and donor families, we will get writing a letter is really hard. I don't actually really want to do that, but I do want to have contact with my donor family. Fine. We will at least open that process up and we can call and see if the donor family is open to communication. Or we've gotten, hey, I really want to write a letter, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it if I put all this time and energy into this letter and the emotional toll and not hear back, right? So if you kind of want to preface that, call us and let us know. If it's our donor family, it's a very quick phone call and see if they're open to correspondence and letter writing. If it's another OPO, we can always call and ask. We don't always get an answer from them. Sometimes they'll just say, no, that's not their practice, but it never hurts to ask. So that's a great question.
We got a great question about including a picture of yourself and your family in your letter. So that is more than okay. We are definitely fine with that. We will always especially if it's our donor family, when we do make that call, we will always disclose that there is a photo. There's letters can provide a lot of emotion for the donor family and photos can do the same. So we just want to give them a heads up that is there. We can ask them, we have a letter for you. We also have a photo. Are you okay receiving both? And they may say, I just want to receive the letter, but at this time, the photo is too much. And that's okay. We'll hold on to that. And we will let you know that, they have received the letter, but they want to hold off on the photo. And the same thing for the other OPOs. They kind of disclose that same thing and kind of gauge the interest of the donor family, whether they want to receive both the letter or the photo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our next question is for John. I think that's a great question. Congratulations on doing well after 10 years of a transplant. No, it's never too late. We can't promise that, we try to keep in touch with donor families as much as we can. To be frank, we do some digging if we don't have contact information or if we call and it's not the right number. So it's never too late. We had someone that worked at Living Legacy actually, and he was really nervous about the correspondence process. He was a kidney recipient, I believe, kidney or liver. Can't remember off the top of my head. It took him 20 years, I think, to write his letter. It's never too late, and we got that to his donor family. So that's a great question. Caroline, in your experience from the donor family's perspective, what do you think is a good time after transplant to reach out?
So I think this is a super individualized question. Some families or some recipients and donor families want to reach out right after the initial transplant, and that's okay. Some families and recipients need a couple months, a couple weeks, even a couple years. Not too long ago, we received a letter from an individual that was transplanted with a kidney 13 years ago, and this was her first time writing. And that's okay. It's when you feel that the time is right to write. It's about you and how you're feeling through the situation. And like we said, we'll touch base with the donor family and make sure that they are also sharing that same, desire to want to know more and correspond right now before we provide that letter. So there is no, perfect answer in regards to 3 weeks is the perfect time. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's not like that. It's whenever you're ready.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Here's just a kind of like a process question. Do they need to send a stamped envelope? That really was the practice. That was kind of the standard of care, I would say even 5 years ago when I first started. I think we've moved away from that, especially with increase in email and technology. And we have to send a separate letter if we're sending this to another OPO or something of that nature. We have to send a separate letter essentially certifying that all the information is correct. And that has to come from our letterhead and our envelopes. So I would say don't even worry about the stamped envelope anymore. Patricia's question for you, Caroline, is that her lung transplant was at Duke University. Does she need to reach out to Duke to where to send her donor family's letter?
Yeah, so you can touch base with your transplant coordinator in regards to that correspondence and just kind of say that you're interested in writing to your donor family, and then they will help to provide you with the organ procurement organization that is assigned to the Duke University Hospital. They will be able to put all the information together and find the correct donor family and help it to get to where it needs to go.
And with that, if that feels like a lot and overwhelming, I see that we had another question about another out of state. Again, we have relationships with all of these people that work at the other OPO. So if I got a letter that said, your transplant was at Duke and maybe it wasn't from our donor family or something, I would say, okay, Duke, I know that's Carolina Donor Services. I would just call up our colleague there and say, hey, I have this letter from the recipient. Can you just kind of double check, make sure it was your donor family, things of that nature, and we'll get it to where it needs to be. All right, so someone had an experience with another OPO and they feel like they've not heard back or anything. So while we are not WRTC, we do have colleagues there. So I would say if you would like to reach out to us and send us an email to that aftercare email with your information, I'd be more than happy just to call down there for you and see if there's anything that we can do of that for you. Okay, I'm just reading the last question from Dave, so give me 1 second. Okay, so I would say, Dave, to answer your question specifically, since there has been no contact, I would just keep it very basic, very neutral, of just like who you are, things of that nature, and just open up that correspondence process since there hasn't been any formal contact up until this point. Great. Is there any other questions that we didn't touch on or we missed maybe in the chat? I really appreciate all of these questions. They're really thoughtful and we really appreciate them.
Could you repeat the email address? I logged in late and I know it's aftercare, but aftercare at what?
Yeah, so it's just the word aftercare, AFTERCARE, the at symbol, then the word THE, and then LLF.org, and that's on the screen and also will be in the slides, and Caroline just threw it in the chat.
Thank you. I'm visually impaired. I couldn't see the screen. Thank you.
No problem.
This is great. We do appreciate it. Are there any other questions? You want to tell them our experience with writing to our donor?
And I was going to say, it's very rewarding. If I could promote this idea at all, I really think that it turns out to be a wonderful experience for both sides, the recipient and the donor side. And even if you end up being somebody like me, I wrote my donor family shortly after my transplant 11 years ago. And unfortunately, the folks had moved and left no forwarding address. So even though I never got a chance to meet my donor family, I ended up naming my liver after them, Larry, and I talk to Larry every day, but I still feel that touch, that communication with some man that was so gentle enough to donate his organ to me at the end of his life, because my last 12 years have been great. And I just wanted to say, no matter how it turns out, it's still a great experience.
So you've gotten a couple more, you've gotten a couple thank yous, great presentations, and you've gotten a couple more questions about should you keep writing if you don't hear back? Should you tell them if you've had some setbacks or some issues? Maybe let them know all the gory details of what's going on with you in your life. Can you still connect with them and not have to go through the OPO or Living Legacy after you do make that initial connection? So if you look, you see you have a few more questions now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you don't hear back and you want to keep rating, do that. We certainly have recipients do that. If you feel like it's a lot to continue to rate and you don't hear anything back, give us a call at the, if unless you've gotten a call from us saying that the family does not want contact or anything of that nature, it's more than likely that the donor family is accepting. They are just not rating back at that point. So if you give us a call, we can touch base with that family and say, hey, okay, you've gotten a couple of letters. How are you feeling? Are you interested in rating? It seems like the recipient would be interested in contact. So we can always do that for you. Once connection and that contact has been made, yes, absolutely. Everything does not need to come through our office. Sometimes we have families and recipients that like that anonymity and they don't want to share that contact information. So they solely go through our office. And then we have other families that after 1 or 2 letters, they want to provide a phone number and an email address, and they take contact from that point forward. I think that is important to note. We don't require any release forms or anything of that nature in terms of releasing contact information. If you want to share it and contact with your donor family directly, that's fine. Other OPOs, it is their practice to have some release forms completed. So if that's the case for your particular donor family relationship, we'll just work with you through that process. We'll get the forms for you signed and we can send that back to the other OPO. And Caroline, I'll let you take this one. Should they mention any complications or setbacks? We've had that a couple of times, actually.
Yeah, so, this is something that we see pretty frequently. It's okay to share your story. It's okay to tell them a little bit about you. I wouldn't get too into the nitty gritty, but kind of like how you got here, how have you been feeling since your transplant? Just, things like that. They want to know. They want to know how you are. They want to know how you're doing. And it's okay to include that. Like I said, I wouldn't get too graphic into it, but I would let them know, has it been a little bit of a struggle since your transplant, but now you're doing really well. It's okay to share that.
Mm-hmm. Neil, congratulations on your transplant 3 years ago. You're at Hopkins. We work with Hopkins. I think I talk to them pretty much every single day. You can come just directly to us because it's going to come to us anyway. And any questions that you have, they're going to direct you to Caroline and I because we're the OPO for Hopkins. So if you have anything specific, reach out to us. And we know all the Hopkins coordinators. So that is an option, but for probably a quicker process, just so it doesn't have to change hands so many times, you can come directly to us.
Any more questions? You've got a lot of kudos here in the chat feature saying it was a great presentation, a lot of thank yous, Amber and Carolyn. So we really do appreciate it. Someone just asked you if you work with the Hopkins Live Living Donor Program also.
That's a great question. So we work specifically with the deceased donor program, but if we get a letter and it's a living donor, we still have the ability to look that up, in our system. We'll just send it to Hopkins. So we'll just send it over there for you.
I think the key is if someone has a question, they could email you or call if they're a little confused as to what's the right step. And like you said, there's really no wrong way to approach this. Everyone has good intentions and the recipients are thankful. They want to reach out and thank the family that saved their lives. So as a recipient, is there a group of recipients to contact and share experiences? Well, that's kind of what Trio Maryland is about. When we get together in person, you have those opportunities to meet with one another and share your experiences and talk about the things that have worked well for you. It's a little hard now. We don't pass out information on any of our members or any of our contacts. You would have to contact some people directly if they provide their email or phone number to you. So it's a little tough right now with COVID, getting that warm, fuzzy feeling, being able to meet up with one another and kind of talk about your shared experiences.
Mm-hmm. And I know that, not every hospital does it, and not even every specific organ program within a transplant hospital does it, but there are support groups through the hospital. But Peter, to your point, that's something that Living Legacy and in the aftercare department we're looking at. So if this is something that's needed where it's just a shared experience Zoom call, right, and the sole purpose is just to share with one another, we would certainly be open to facilitating that in some way, of course, with the help of Trio and things of that nature. So I think that's a good point, and we can look at what we can do to support you all on the back end.
At Trio, we can hook you up with one person specifically if you'd like to speak to someone. We do have people that like to talk to other liver recipients, kidney recipients, lung recipients, heart recipients. So if you email us directly, if you you have a topic, something, I can certainly reach out and find someone that would speak to you directly. But unfortunately, right now, we don't have that big group of people. We would normally be at Living Legacy today. We would all be in person. You would be able to meet other people, talk to other people, and kind of share your stories with one another. And that's kind of missing right now when we're doing things by Zoom. So that's kind of a shame, but we still get all this great information out to people. So that's still a positive.
Anything else today? But then at this point, we'd like to say goodbye to everyone. Once again, we'd like to thank Carolyn and Amber for their time today and presenting this great topic to us. We'll be on the phone for about 5 minutes afterwards if anyone would like to say hello. But once again, we want to say thank you for your attending today. Michelle?
Yeah, no, this is great. We had a great turnout, and Carolyn and Amber, thank you for your time on a Saturday morning. We appreciate it, and such good information, and it's something that makes us all feel good because we all are very thankful for the fact that ourselves or our loved one got that transplant. So it's a good thing to do, to reach out to your donor family. So
with any kind of luck, next year, we'll be back to having our picnic during the summer and our holiday party in December.